Everyone, I'll get in front of the camera for just a minute. Hello, we got 2 people in the chat so far. Thanks for joining. You're the legends that join early. So today I'm going to be filming the part of the video where I take apart the extruder and I look inside of the bottom of this machine, just to see what's inside of the electronics bay and to see what other kind of goodies they've included inside of that extruder. And hopefully I can figure out if that design's actually been improved or they just changed the surface finish as a cosmetic thing. Alright, so let me know if everything sounds good on your end. I'm hoping the audio's alright. And I've got my camera here, so I'll be filming stuff as I go. So the first thing I'm going to do is move my little flexi spot table downwards, just so I can get a better vantage point here. You guys are going to have a great view of everything that's going on. Hello everyone in the chat. All right, so here goes. We're just going to take this extruder off. And to make it interesting, I'm going to try and use only the tools that came with the machine. So I think this is the box that came with the K1. I'm not entirely sure. This looks like the box. This looks like it's the thing that came with. So we got some screwdrivers and Allen wrenches and stuff. Comes with a glue stick, some grease, and some other random bits. Let's move this down even further so it can be super ergonomical. And I'll be keeping an eye on the chat, so if you all have any questions about content creation, about this machine, people watching on the phone can just use landscape mode. It's not difficult. All right, let's see what I can do. How do you like it now? Let's see. You know, that's going to be too difficult for me to figure out right now. But what I encourage anyone on a computer to do is to drag this tab off to the right-hand side and do something productive while you watch me. And then share at the end all the great stuff that you accomplished with these 2 or so hours that I'm going to be live streaming. Yeah, so how's the video quality? Can you see what's going on here? Does that look like anything that makes sense? Can you tell that that's a hot end? Alrighty, so I've taken this apart before. It's exactly the same as the K1, so I just have to loosen 2 screws up and pull this front shroud off. One screw over here. Uh-oh. This side is blocked by the Lidar module, so this is going to be a little bit more involved to remove. Looks like I'm going to have to take the Lidar module off in order to remove this thing. So this is going to be extra fun. All right, I'm going to need to find a longer Allen wrench. I already lost the one that came. Oh, here it is. Never mind. I think this is the one I need. So I have to undo 2 screws here. Try to set your phone on landscape mode and then film. By default, it should be landscape and not rotated portrait. Well, Alexander, if you really don't want to get anything done, I'll think about it. But is that really what you want? You never know. Is Creality Slicer even remotely usable by your taste? Yes, it is, but I'm actually going to try and make a Prusa slicer profile for it, just because I like Prusa slicer. You can download Creality Print. So it's not Creality Slicer, it's Creality Print that you use with this machine. Creality Print is like their newer version of Creality Slicer, and they basically are just starting a whole new branch, I think, because they wanted to add some networking features that are really convenient when you're doing like print farm stuff, or if you have multiple printers. So yeah, try downloading Creality Print and just see what it's like to slice with it. It's actually not too bad, especially since it comes with a decent profile for the K1. You just slice it with the default profile and you don't have to do any tuning. But it's another one of those cases of reinventing the wheel. I wish everyone would just use Prusa Slicer, because that's clearly the superior option. All right, what type of carbonated beverage should I drink today? I'm so pissed they're keeping the firmware locked. Yep, a lot of people are. I think they're going to... I just turned the machine off just to make sure I don't fry anything. But I'm fairly certain they're going to open source it. It's just a matter of time. If you don't feel comfortable buying from Creality until that's already been open sourced, then I wouldn't blame you for waiting. Okay, so right in here. Landscape would be better for your eyes, but this is fine too. All right, that's the spirit. I'm so pissed, yeah. From the people I've talked to at Creality, they all say that they're going to open source this thing soon. I've actually had them on camera saying that, but I don't really want to publish that until they've actually done it, because I'm not entirely sure what the timeline is going to be. And you know, you only come to Nathan Builds Robots for the facts, the true information. All right, so this should be able to come right off now. I think it helps to just pry this little tab off. Maybe I pull it up from the bottom. Yeah, okay. I have to unplug this cable actually before I remove the shroud here. So that's going to be a little annoying. I've got to unplug this little Lidar module. But we can take a closer look at it now. So here's the Lidar module. Looks like it's got a laser emitter. This will cast a line. And then this appears to be just a white LED. And then it's got a little camera there. So pretty simple device. I hope they sell this as an add-on that people can put on their like Vorons and stuff. Just to have a really cheap, lightweight, small laser scanner. So people can start experimenting with that. Oh no. You're having a beer and ready to not do anything? Okay. Let's see. Let's see what happens. I'm going to rotate this. Please stand by. Orientation is locked, it says. So I'm going to pop off. Oh, okay. You're going to watch anyways, so I don't have to do anything. That's great. Okay, quality is great, not super clear, but not potato. Like what kept happening last time. Okay, that's good. So as I was saying in my other videos, this latch is a lot more secure when you flip it back and forth. And it appears that they've changed the alloy. I mean, that's what I'm assuming has happened. They might have changed this from a zinc aluminum alloy to a steel alloy here. So if that's the case, this extruder should be a lot stronger. Now, the first thing that you should do when you're trying to determine what alloy a material or a metal is, the first thing you should do is put a magnet to it. So I'm going to find a magnet really quick. I should have magnets laying around all over the place. But that magnet is going to tell you if it's a ferrous metal or if it's just a magnetic metal in general. But usually steels and irons are magnetic, and they'll stick, a magnet will stick to them. It's just I don't know where any of my stuff is. Okay, here we go. This is a little bit magnetic. Yep, that's magnetic. Look, it's sticking to it. So they changed this from a zinc aluminum alloy to a steel alloy, which is awesome. And it has a matte surface finish. So this is why you all tune in to the Nathan Builds Robots YouTube channel, is for the facts, the science, and the metallurgy. So yeah, this is a steel. Might be some kind of stainless steel or just a high carbon steel. But it's got this kind of strange texture on it. So let's just liberate it from this enclosure and see what it looks like. Actually, I'm just discovering that I didn't need to undo this fan duct, but mistakes were made. So let me just undo the 3 screws that hold this extruder in place. Nathan, for the next 3 years, you are allowed to just use one printer. Which could you choose? Oof. Let's see. So if I could only pick one printer to use for 3 years, it would probably be something that's upgradable. I mean, as nice as these hyper fast printers are, I don't like being locked into the current feature set. So I'd probably pick something like a Voron or an Ender 3 or a Prusa, something that I could work on and upgrade. But realistically, I don't think I'd ever be stuck with one printer. Worst case, you start with one printer and then you print out another printer. So you could have pretty much anything. But yeah, probably an Ender 3 platform just because of how moddable it is and how easy it is to maintain. I have my doubts of whether a K1 or a P1P or any of the Bambu Lab printers could last for 3 years. All right, let's pull this off. And I have to make sure not to break the wires here. And what I'm actually going to do is I'll just leave this stepper motor in place and undo these 2 screws to take the extruder off. Because the connectors that go from the stepper motor into the breakout board appear to be glued. I'm not sure if they're glued. They look like they're glued. So, you know, if you can avoid taking the stepper motor off, I would do that. All right, let's see what else. Questions in the chat. The extruder is really a new one? Yes, it is. This is a brand new material that they're using. This old material is a material that's commonly used for casting. You make cast parts out of this. So I'll actually take this off. I need to make sure I don't mix up the parts between the old extruder and the new extruder. But yeah, let me just undo these screws. So here's the old extruder. And we'll take a look at some of the parts and features in here. So here's the front cover. I'm gonna set this like way off to the side so I don't mix it up. This is the old extruder. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with the actual gears inside of it. The problem is with the tensioning mechanism. So you can see this is the tensioning mechanism. It's chrome plated, so it's very shiny. But one of the issues is that, let's see. See, it's not magnetic, which means it's made out of either a stainless steel or more likely it's made out of an aluminum zinc alloy, which is really commonly used for die-cast parts. It's the same alloy that's used for, like, you remember Hot Wheels, those little toy cars? If someone says the name in the chat, I will repeat it. It's like a Z something. It's like a xylitol or some kind of name for that metallic alloy of aluminum and zinc that's very easy to cast. Or maybe it's aluminum and tin. I don't know exactly. But someone needs to do some Googling. Whatever Hot Wheels are made out of, that's what this is made out of. So it's kind of weak. This one's made out of steel. Oops. And I just realized I need to start my real camera up so I can record these random experimentations. So here I'm removing the old extruder, and one of the major findings that I've found so far is that this whole extruder mechanism, this tensioning arm, is made out of a metallic alloy that's magnetic. If we look at the old extruder, when we hold the magnetic screwdriver up to it, it doesn't stick at all. But when we hold it up here, it sticks really nicely. So that's some kind of steel. Or cast iron, but I doubt it'd be made out of cast iron. So let's take it apart. I just need to undo these screws. Just because I don't, oops. And I'm undoing these screws to remove the stepper motor so that I can free this extruder. I'm gonna need to undo the screws to see the inside of the extruder anyways, so it's just something that we have to do. Since my last comment about stream quality, it's been quite good. Wouldn't worry about it. All right, thank you, Technically Real. With PTFE vertically positioned, I had no under extrusion with K1. All right, that's good to know. The issue is that the extruder should be able to overpower those bends in the tube. So, you know, there's a couple kinks in the tube, and if the extruder can't pull it through that, that's indicating that it's kind of got a weak grip strength. All right, so we're uncovering all sorts of crazy stuff here already. There's also a shim. Oh, crap. There's also a shim made out of this PCB material that's separating and spacing out the stepper motor. So that's an interesting addition. That might be just to get the correct spacing between these two components, or it might also be a thermal or electrical insulator. Because the stepper motor can get quite hot, you don't want it transferring the heat into those gears and the extruder mechanism, because that could melt or weaken the filament that it's trying to move back and forth. All right, so does it have a poop chute? No poop chute on this machine. Let me just look at something real quick though. There's no poop chute, but it can move, it can kind of move off further to the side of the print bed. I don't know if this is in line. I think it's slightly off the edge of the bed over here where it is. So there is a possibility it could extrude and just have it kind of piling up underneath the machine, or to add some kind of mechanism here on the left side that could act as a poop chute. I bet you're right about it being a thermal break. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, because you don't want your extruder gears getting hot, because that will weaken the filament, because, you know, it's like a hot knife through butter. Butter does not have a lot of tensile strength when you heat it up. So let's get this out of here. I'll just pull this out. I'm going to remove this reverse Bowden tube. Another thing that's different than the K1, between this and the K1, is it's using these clips to guide the PTFE tube instead of forcing the PTFE tube to exist inside of this, this chain. Forcing it inside of the chain puts extra wear and sharper bend radiuses on it. So it's better to just have it be freely out here and just kind of clipped on with these little clips. The interesting thing about these clips is they have room for 2 PTFE tubes. So that would be pretty crazy if Creality had a double extruder setup on one of their models. So you heard it here first, Creality may be working on a double extruder model of the K1. It would only make sense because there's 2 PTFE tubes. There's room for 2 PTFE tubes here. Like, why would they add that if they weren't planning that at some point? Okay, so here's the new extruder. I'll take the top cover off here. How's everyone doing? Any questions, just drop them in the chat. The extruder is, and the K1 is up to V4 now. This fiberglass plate and new material is present in the new extruders for the regular K1. Okay, that's good to know. So yeah, Creality, it seems like they may have rushed this product to market. At least the original K1 was kind of rushed to market. And then they waited to release the K1 Max until they had all of the final changes on there. So yeah, here's our new extruder. I'll put the old one side by side so you can kind of see them. They look really similar. Is it just me, or these ones are shinier on the old extruder? The actual hob gears that drive the filament are shinier. So they might be some kind of chromed metal. Let me get the magnet of truth and see which one is magnetic. Okay, this one's magnetic. And so is this one. Although I would say this one, the new one, might be even more strongly magnetic than the old one. So different alloys of steel have different levels of magnetism. So this might be a clue. The red one is the old. I'm going to see if I can pick it up using the magnet. I can almost pick it up, versus on this new one, I feel like it's much easier to pick this up and I can like really toss it around a little bit. So I think they might have changed the metal that they're using on this gear here. And a quick test you can do, if I had a file, I could do a file test just to see if I can scratch this metal. But I have some other hardened steel at my disposal. So this is probably made out of some kind of tool steel or high-speed steel. Yeah, cutting tools are usually made out of a hardened steel. So when I try and scratch this, we'll see if I can get it to make a mark. Looks like I'm leaving a mark with this tool. So if these are hardened at all, it's not as hard as these cutters. Let's take a look at the old extruder, just so everyone remembers. The old extruder is the one with the red teeth and the shiny extruder tensioning mechanism. See if I can scratch. That was actually pretty scratch resistant. So let's see. Compare that to the new one. I need some more official tools for this stuff. So yeah, dual extruder for K1 or Bambu. Well, I can assure you that they're working on it, because that's where Ultimaker and some of these other manufacturers really set themselves apart, is the dual extruder. Ultimaker and Stratasys, it's especially useful for making functional parts because you can get that support material. Either dissolvable support material or just a different material because, for example, carbon fiber nylon is really difficult to print with supports. Okay, sorry, 5 a.m. here in New Zealand. Gotta go back to bed. All right, thanks, Laurie. I have to go in France. Thanks, Nathan, for all your explanations. You're welcome. This may have been discovered already, but where did you get the new extruder? Was it purchased or RMA from Creality? So this new extruder is the one that came stock on the K1 Max that I just received. It just got here last week. So this should probably be their most up-to-date design right here. Let's take a look at some of the other components in here just to see if there's any differentiating factors we can see. I mean, the main thing that I was complaining about with this old extruder was you've got these wheels that are under a high load because, you know, you've got your filament in the middle being clamped by these two wheels. So basically, you know, you've got everything clamped in here, and this filament is pushing out on both of these wheels because, you know, the wheels are pinching in and the filament is pushing back against them. The way that these screws are secured is they're screwed down into a post that's sticking out of the extruder arm. And I won't take this one fully apart just because it's working and I don't want to mess with it, but I will take the old one apart and you can get an idea of what it looks like in there. I do a lot of PLA prints with PTG support interfacing. All right. Herzelnurk has entered the chat. Welcome, Herzelnurk. Nobody offend Herzelnurk. He's got very sensitive feelings. I put red Loctite in this when I put it together, so it comes apart pretty nice. It just has to snap clean. All right, so Herzelnurk, since you just got here, I'll get you up to speed. Basically, the new extruder that comes on this K1 Max has parts of it that are made out of steel instead of that zinc aluminum alloy that they were using before. So let's see, I'll take this apart, and you can see this piece is under a lot of stress right here. Let me zoom in on it. This part right here, this post that's sticking out at 90 degrees from the rest of the part, both of these, this one right here and this one right here, the extruder wheels have these relatively small screws screwed into them. And then that's just basically a cantilevered support. So let me screw this one back in so that you can kind of see. So yeah, you know, it's just screwed in on this post, and that force from the filament, because the filament goes in right here, the force of the filament pushing it this way is going to put these threads under a lot of stress, and they can locally yield. You know, it's not going to cause the whole thing to break and fall apart, but just a small amount of yielding of those threads can cause them to loosen up. And then once this gets loose, you're not really, you really don't have that much control over the position. Like I loosened it 1/8 of a turn, and now it feels wobbly like a loose tooth. Like, you know, this thing's gonna fall out, and then you're gonna have to put it under your pillow, and then someone will, yeah. So changing all that over to steel, I think, is going to be a huge improvement. I can actually feel this one's a lot heavier. And I'd like people to, well, let's just take a look at the rest of this here. Now, I don't know if anyone cares about this, but I think it's interesting. So that's what we're looking at today. So here's the old extruder, and here's the new one. And you can see it's got this matte, rough surface finish. So that indicates to me that they're using some kind of powder metallurgy process. It's possible that these were 3D printed, or they could have just been machined and then bead blasted. But in any case, I think that's a big upgrade. I think it's great that Creality is actually fixing these issues instead of just letting them linger forever. So I'm hoping that'll fix all of the under extrusion problems that I've been having. And that's certainly been my experience with this K1 Max. Let's see. But the rest of the parts look the same, like this little gear here, and this one looks exactly the same. The actual, let me grab it. It fell down. The actual little gear looks the same. The only difference is that the surface finish is different on the older wheel. They got rid of the chrome plating for some reason. Maybe they just figured it wasn't worth it, or it was too expensive and not worth doing. I'm not sure if this is a hardened steel gear. However, I wouldn't steer away from printing carbon fiber nylon with it. I would definitely be careful. But until Bambu Lab came around, everyone, as far as I know, was just printing carbon fiber reinforced nylon on regular steel gears, and nobody thought it was a big deal. So yeah, I mean, that might be an issue, might not be an issue. The other thing is these are larger diameter drive gears, which will make it so there's less wear and tear for a given amount of filament that's run through here. So for example, if you run a full kilogram of carbon fiber nylon through here, it'll experience about half the wear as a smaller diameter wheel. And if you look at the extruder on the Bambu Lab machine, the extruder is a smaller diameter. Now I think these drive gears are actually in between in size. They're not quite as big as the LGX gears, but they're bigger than the normal kind of typical gears. Seems like the metal posts are attached to might have a bit of flex in it, allowing the post to go off from 90 degrees under stress, even if the bolts are tightened properly. Yeah, that's correct. There will be a little bit more play. Does anyone know the modulus of elasticity of aluminum versus steel? Anybody? I think aluminum's like, I don't really know. Herzelnerk should know. He's into knife making. Even though you don't work with aluminum, you should at least know the modulus of elasticity of steel, steel. Functional Print Friday. Hello, Functional Print Friday. Looks centered, but hard to tell on camera. Yeah, the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm thinking it might be bead blasted. Like these could be machined parts that are bead blasted. Well, shoot, I think I'm gonna have to take this apart now. We've come this far, let's just do it. Okay, yes. Thank you for Googling that, Super Johnson. Or maybe you have a very good memory, or you're a structural engineer. What's aluminum, like less than half? Oof, this is really hard to loosen. Oh my goodness, it feels like I'm gonna break it. Holy cow, that's insane. I don't have a torque wrench on here, but I can guarantee you that's harder than you've probably ever turned an M3 screw in your life. I don't know what they put on this to make it so tight in there, but I imagine these screws coming loose was an issue for them. Oh my gosh, and it pops out. Okay. So I'm going to hold this up to my real camera, just so I can get some footage for YouTube. This was very hard to remove. And over here, this is a steel. And over here, this is some kind of steel. I don't know if it's bead blasted or some other type of process. Could be sintered metal, could be some kind of metal powder metallurgy process. But given how flat this piece is, it lends me to believe that this is a machined part. I think they decided, you know what, screw it, we're just gonna spend what we need to spend to get this thing working properly, which is very un-Creality of them to do. But I think they're experiencing a lot of pressure in the marketplace right now, so they have the money to be able to build printers correctly. It's just a matter of whether they're gonna do it or not. And it seems like they're doing it now. But there is some really strong Loctite in there. There's a slight amount of gray residue on these threads. I'm not sure if I'll be able to put this thing back together and have it be as strong as it was before. So that's kind of why I didn't want to take this apart. But you know what? We're already one screw in. Let's just take the other screw off. I've never seen gray Loctite before. So, I mean, let me get a torque wrench, actually. I think I have a torque wrench. That'll be interesting to see how much torque is required to break those free. If anyone's got questions in the chat, drop it for me. Kind of looks like acid wash, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's shot peened, which is a really cool process. It's useful for a lot of reasons, including fatigue strength and just getting a uniform surface finish in general. I've got to find my torque wrench, so I'm just looking around for a minute. Don't you guys hate it when you can't find your torque wrench when you really need it? Sounds like they went about all things in reverse order. Usually V1 is overbuilt and then things get whittled down. You know, that's a good idea. That's kind of how Bambu Lab did it. The X1C was their kind of range topping model, and then they removed stuff for the P1P and P1S and X1. But yeah, this is very important stuff. I need to find that torque wrench. I know it's around here somewhere. Alright, sorry for not being able to find my torque wrench. I hope this isn't too boring. Will we see a long-term update? Yeah, definitely. I'm doing this teardown because I think it's important stuff to figure out about this machine. And there's no substitute for a torque wrench. But yeah, Creality have sent me multiple revisions of their extruder, including this one. This is another extruder that they sent me, in addition to the one that's taken apart right now. This one over here. And I mean, I looked at it and I was like, you know, this isn't good enough, and I didn't even bother installing it. This thing is different. This is like a, you know, they really put some brain power into developing something new that might actually fix the problem. So I'm totally all for trying that out. But what I told them and what I told everyone else was that they need to fundamentally redesign things if they want me to trust what they've built. So this is what I'd consider a fundamental redesign, where they've changed the material, which will actually that actually might lead to some improvement. Yeah, 70 GPa to 200 GPa, so 3 times stiffer. Now here's an anecdote that those outside of the mechanical engineering realm might not know. But when you go from a mild steel to a spring steel, how does that change the modulus of elasticity? Does anyone in the classroom know? I mean, you think like, oh, spring steels and tool steels, those are harder and stronger than a mild steel, so they probably have a higher modulus of elasticity, right? Busy printing a torque wrench. Yeah. Yes, pepperonic is correct. It does not change the modulus of elasticity, or any changes that it makes are basically negligible, because you're not changing the springiness of the steel, you're just changing how far it can bend before it breaks. So if you've got problems with vibration, changing the alloy is unlikely to solve the problem. There are different alloys that have damping properties, so I mean, any absolute statements like that are good to avoid. But in general, you're going to need to use a thicker part, or switch to an aluminum and make the part much thicker, which will end up being stiffer because of the geometry rather than the actual alloy itself getting stiffer. Okay, so I'm going to look for this wrench for, I'll give it another 2 minutes, and if I can't find it, we're just going to get this show on the road, and you'll just have to trust my quantitative judgment of my torque wrench fingers. My torque fingers. Oh no, we found it. I got the torque wrench. Okay, so we're going to get some real data here. I've got my torque wrench, so let's get the show on the road. Okay. I'm going to be messing up this whole print surface and nothing's going to stick to it because I'm using it as a workbench, but that's too bad. Okay, so we'll get the right size bit. Stick that in there. And here's our little torque wrench. So if you haven't used one of these before, then you're not a mechanic or a mechanical engineer that I would like to work on my cars. This basically lets you dial in torque values for various jobs. And basically, however much you adjust this handle, you've got a little kind of display here that tells you what your torque value is. So it looks like the minimum torque value I can apply here is 2 Newton meters. So we'll start with 2 Newton meters and see if that's enough to break this free. I'm going to start with the stock extruder, the one that we had before. So let's see if I can loosen this up. Yeah, that was easy to loosen. Let's try this other extruder that they sent out. I mean, they sent me these ones with red paint on them, and it's like, why do they have red paint? Now let's try and loosen this up. Oh, that loosened up right away very easily. Try this one. Yeah, these loosen up no problem. In fact, they work themselves loose just from running the machine. So I'm going to try tightening this up now and see how much torque I can apply. Let's see if we can even put 2 Newton meters on here. There we go. We can put 2 Newton meters on there. And it comes loose very easily. So, you know, that's a thing. Now let's try this out. I'm going to get my YouTube camera filming this too because, you know, content. So I've got my torque wrench out. It's set to 2 Newton meters, and now I'm going to try loosening this bolt. It was easily able to break free the bolts on this old extruder at the 2 Newton meter setting, which is the minimum for this wrench. But we'll see how it goes on this new extruder. So just like before, we're set to 2 Newton meters. I'll try twisting it. It comes loose. Okay. Okay, fine. All right, well, we're not getting any useful data. Basically, I need a more sensitive measuring tool. But I'll tighten this up to 2 Newton meters, and it feels very secure when I tighten it up to 2. Versus on this one, let's tighten this one up to 2 Newton meters. It feels like it's kind of really biting into the material and possibly doing some damage. It feels really kind of gross to tighten this up that much. It feels like I'm doing damage. I mean, that's the way it feels to me. So I'm going to turn this up to 2.5 Newton meters. We'll give it another tighten. It's over tightening, and I feel like this is going to break. Functional Print Friday. Thanks for the tip. Thank you for your hard work. Keep it real. The community needs more people like you. Thank you. Love it. Thanks for the comment, Functional Print. It'd be easy enough if he'd had enable rotation for his phone and turn it sideways. I'm sorry. That's okay, so I just got this tightened up to 2.5 Newton meters. I'll do the same thing on this other extruder and see how that feels. Ooh, it just goes right to that torque setting and it feels nice and crispy. Let's try cranking it up to 3 Newton meters. Now, the weird thing is I'm holding this, and as I rotate it, you can see the angle of the wrench slipping further and further. Like, that indicates to me that this thing is yielding. Like, this thing can't withstand 3 Newton meters of torque. This is completely stripped out. And that's because this is made out of a wimpy material. This aluminum zinc crap. All right, you see that? I'm putting giant gouges and scratches in it just by tapping on it. So yeah, this is a crappy piece of crap, you know. So let's switch over to the new extruder from the K1 Max. See, I tap on this. It doesn't leave a mark. If it does, it just barely leaves any kind of mark. It does kind of leave marks, but it's, you know, it's holding up a lot better than that other extruder was. And now we're at 3 Newton meters. I left the torque wrench set to the same setting, and I bet this thing's going to handle it no problem. So here goes. See, it slips. It slips about 10 degrees and then it clicks. So it tightened it down a little bit more. And that's why you want your threads to be made out of steel instead of aluminum. So this has aluminum threads. They strip out very easily. If you wanted to tighten this up more to kind of compensate for the weakness of this design and just kind of get that torqued down more so it holds into position better, you just can't do it with aluminum because you'll break it. Versus with steel, you can apply 2 to 3 times more torque and get these bolts really cranked down so they won't come loose under normal operation. So I feel like that's enough experimentation with this. It's safe to say that Creality have actually done their job and fixed this extruder, which, I mean, I'm really happy that they did that. Otherwise, my K1 Max review was going to be at least 25% about how the extruder's shit, but now that they've fixed it, I don't have to complain about it. And I try to be fair and critical in my reviews. You know, I thought he had expansive cameras and stuff for videos. Well, not this video. I'm doing this broke style. At best, they would develop an extruder with both ends of the axle supported hardened steel gears. Yeah, I agree, Alexander. That would be a better feature set. However, I think they're trying to get this down to be as cheap as possible. And one of your big costs when you manufacture anything is the assembly cost. So the cost involved with putting this thing together is going to be significant. And if you can design it so that it's just tightening a bolt down instead of lining up a shaft and a gear and 2 holes that are on opposite ends of an enclosure that has to sandwich these parts together, this is just a much simpler assembly operation. You just need a torque wrench and you send your little assemblers at the task and you have them tighten this down. We're going to tighten this one down to 3 Newton meters. Yeah, if you don't have a torque wrench, you should seriously get one, because I've broken very expensive equipment by not using a torque wrench. So just buy one. It sounds expensive, but the first piece of equipment you don't break by using it is going to pay for itself. So yeah, you can tighten these bolts down more, and that's going to help it hold together better and not come loose while you're running your prints. So got to give Creality props here. I've only tightened down by my hand to what felt right. Guess it's my reminder to at least get some Loctite in there. Yeah, I think some Loctite would help. There's some heavy-duty Loctite in here. It was like some gray stuff. I've never seen gray Loctite. I think it's mostly their desire to have a lever. Yeah, this lever here is pretty nice. But the Bondtech LGX Lite also has a lever. This looks like it's machined to me because of the way that these features line up. Because when you run a CNC machine and you have something that needs to be machined on both sides, well, I guess these could be machining marks in the mold. that they're using. Or it could even be a 3D printed part. I really don't know enough to comment here. You know what? I've got a torque wrench. I can take this apart repeatedly, so let me just take it apart and let's get this thing fully disassembled and see what those metal pieces look like. If they didn't have the lever and slider, none of this would have happened. I agree. If they would have just went with a more conventional design with a spring, none of this would be an issue right now. Ricardo Silva says it's injection. All right, we'll see about that, Ricardo. So if we take both of these shoulder bolts off, here's the piece. And this looks thicker to me. Well, let me get the old one. I'll take this this gear off too. So we're just looking at this metal part now. Here's our older version. I'm not going to mix up any of these parts. Okay, so let's compare these side by side. Here's the bolts that they're using. They appear to be exactly the same, except the older bolts have a little bit of red paint on them. I'm not sure what that's about, but maybe that's how they keep track of the old crappy ones. Okay, so here's the new bolts. They're better. I'm going to get a shot of this for my camera for YouTube. So the red bolts are the old ones and the silver bolts are the new ones. And there doesn't appear to be any difference between them. So the red bolts are the old bolts and the silver bolts are the new ones, and there doesn't appear to be any difference between them other than that coat of red paint. All right, so yeah, this is the exciting process that goes into filming my YouTube videos. Does the knob lever have a slight chamfer that would support injection? Okay, I'll take a look at it. So let me put this down. Oof. I'm glad all these parts have different surface finishes so I can kind of keep track of the bad stuff a little bit easier. But here goes. Let's take a look. So let me zoom in with my YouTube camera so I can kill two birds with one stone. So here's a good angle here. All right, so here's the difference between the old extruder and the new extruder. The new extruder is made out of this stainless steel type metal. This old one is made out of this chromed aluminum crap. And you can tell the difference using a magnetic tool. This is a magnetic screwdriver. You can see it doesn't stick to this old extruder at all. But you stick it to this one and it picks it right up. So this is some kind of steel. Picks it all the way up, actually. And I thought this was completely ridiculous that Creality would design this to use a like some kind of aluminum alloy, because it has a built-in little pin here. That little pin action, that's going to wear. All of these surfaces where it's rubbing against itself, those are all potential wear surfaces. And it just doesn't seem like a good idea. Also, it's less stiff. I mean, it might be cheaper to manufacture. I'm guessing that's probably the main feature that they were looking for in this process. You can see it was, Creality invested significant money into this because they had to design a mold for this part. You can see all these ejector pin markings. All these ejector pin markings, that's money. You know, like, they thought this was going to be the design that they go with, so they invested in tooling, and they're like, let's gear up to make 100,000 of these. But that just ended up being a waste of money to make that tooling, because this part is virtually useless. Now let's look at the steel version. There's no ejection pin markings, so that would indicate to me that this is not something that was cast, or I guess it could be forged, but really the features on here to me indicate that it was finished by machine. So at the very least, they had to install this into a CNC machine to do all these finishing features. And given how small this part is, I assume that they just are machining this out of a single block of steel. You know, after hearing my YouTube videos and how much I complained about it, they were like, shit, we need to change it. So, yeah. Watch for those little circles on the metal piece. Those indicate detached system from the injection molding. Yeah, that's right. And even if you have a powder metallurgy process, those will typically have those ejector pins as well, I think. I think you can also get away with not using ejector pins, but it makes things a lot easier, even if you're doing just powder metallurgy process. So powder metallurgy is when you take just powderized metal and you put it in a mold and compress it under a hydraulic ram. And that can be used to make all sorts of alloys. Basically any alloy that you can turn into a powder. You compress it into like a biscuit, and then you put it into a sintering furnace and it becomes a solid part. I mean, these could also have been 3D printed out of a metal process, but I find that extremely unlikely just because of how expensive that process is. And the biggest clue for me would be, I think this surface finish is produced by shot peening. So or sandblasting, bead blasting, whatever you want to call it. So they put it in this chamber and they shoot it with sand or particles to roughen the surface up. And that helps remove machining marks and kind of smooth everything out, get rid of catch points, round off these edges so they're not cut hazards. Like, it would be really unfortunate if these edges were sharp and I could hurt myself on them. So these were probably bead blasted. And the biggest tell for me would be the internal surfaces, like these machined little features, these machined slots. It's harder to bead blast inside of there. So I will take a look and give you my objective opinion. It does look like right in there, it's shinier and it doesn't have that smooth surface finish. And also I can see CNC like chatter here. So I definitely think these parts were CNC machined. I'll hold them up to the real camera so that the more important audience, I mean, sorry guys, you're just live stream audience people, but my YouTube audience is going to be the ones that get the nice juicy 4K footage. So come back for that. If you're not subscribed, make sure to get subscribed. Okay, cool. So, I mean, that's a major finding here. Like, I'm super proud of Creality for actually stepping it up and fixing this part, because sometimes companies will just keep making the same crap and just keep pushing forward with a design that isn't the best for the customer, but they're just saving money and not wanting to invest in fixing the problem. Creality has clearly stepped up here, so Got to give them props, which is what they should be doing. I mean, I hate to sound surprised here, but a lot of Creality's older designs, they haven't really bothered fixing some of the really easy stuff to fix, which is why there's such a vibrant modding scene for the Ender 3 products. But yeah, really cool stuff. I know people were excited about buying this K1 extruder as an aftermarket part to install on like a Voron or an Ender 3. And I was like, I wouldn't really bother. It's not as good as the other options on the market. I'm really hoping that this fix is actually improved it to the point where it would be a good alternative. Now, the last thing I'm going to do here is going to be like the spot the differences kind of challenge, and we'll see if we can see any differences between these two parts. Well, there's a big difference right here, actually. You can see right here, this slot ends, and then it's replaced with a kind of blind slot that doesn't cut all the way through. It stops before it cuts all the way through the part. On this one, that's just a straight slot all the way through. So clearly they've intended to leave a little bit more material there to stiffen this part up. I mean, that's my interpretation. Or it was just easier to machine this way by not cutting all the way through. I'm going to hold it up for the real YouTube camera now. Then from the back side, it's even... Ooh. It's so hard to maneuver things for a camera that's reversed, but let me get there. And then from the back side, it's even more apparent what that difference is. All right, and then for you, little live stream audience, you can see on the back side, this part is covered and this part is open. So that's a major difference. The actual latch appears to be the same. All the other stuff looks the same. It's just that material changeover. And also down here, this has also been stiffened up. Down here. So see how that is kind of like that slot cuts all the way through there, and it doesn't cut all the way through on the steel version. All right, and then for the real audience, for the YouTube people, they didn't cut all the way through on this slot here, versus on this version, they cut all the way through that area. All right, so overall solid improvements. In terms of the thickness of the parts, it looks the same. And the funny thing is I actually have some pictures of the prototypes that Creality was working on before they produced their first production extruder. And it looked like it was made out of steel. So at some point in the line, they were like, hey, maybe we can switch this over to aluminum, save some money. And they're like, yeah, let's go for it. They might have done some analysis showing that, yeah, it makes sense to do, we can get away with it. But they didn't have the practical engineering wherewithal that someone like Nathan Builds Robots can provide to know that by switching over to aluminum, you're sacrificing the clamping strength of those fasteners, and that's just going to cause issues, especially when you're loading those screws, these tiny M3 screws or shoulder bolts, in bending. So I don't want to belabor that point too much, but just it's good to know. Oh crap, I wasn't recording. Oh, I wasn't recording any of that for the real YouTube people. Well, you saw it here first, folks. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to look at was the electronics bay. I'm just going to leave that stuff disassembled. So let's flip this thing over and take a look at what's going on under the hood. For those of, for everyone that wasn't along for the full ride, well, there was a lot that we found out by taking that extruder apart. And the long story short is that Creality has fixed all of the issues that I had with the extruder. And if it works reliably from here on out, then that's a win for everybody. So let's zoom ourselves out here and flip this machine over. All right, any questions in the chat? You're watching a professional at work, lol. All in good fun. Yep. Yeah, I am a professional engineer, so these are the types of things that I could have told them if I was you know, an engineer at Creality or something. Could have saved them a lot of money. A lot of money, people. So, all right, let's take a look under the machine and see what kind of electronics we've got. So I think it's got something's got to be different here compared to the K1, because that heated bed looks like it's more powerful. Yeah, my table's all the way down, so this is as low as we can go. Blow the camera up. All right, so there's got to be something new going on with the electronics, because that bed's got to be more powerful. This thing's got to draw more power than the regular K1. And there isn't a visible switch for changing the voltage setting on this machine. So you know, normally on a 3D printer, you've got the little switch for switching between 240 volt and 120 volt. Well, on this machine, there's no exposed switch, so that might mean they're using a higher end power supply. But we'll figure that out for ourselves now, won't we? If there's any questions in the chat, I'm going to read them in a second here. I'm just going to take this bottom off first. Hopefully you can see what's going on over here. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. There's, I think it's the same number of screws to remove this bottom panel as the K1, so shouldn't take too long. Just 6 screws to remove this. And this might be something that you could leave off. It will leave some exposed high voltage wires, so actually you probably shouldn't leave it off. But it's something that I might leave off because I'm crazy. All right, 5 out of 6. And 6 out of 6. All right, who's ready for the grand reveal? What's inside the box? I'm gonna read through some comments first and crack open a nice can of Spreecher's Orange Dream Soda, fire brewed craft soda. This stuff's delicious. I don't know if I can drink beer on stream, but this is just as good. Oh. Okay, I'm going to read through your comments, guys, so drop them in here so I can answer all the questions. So, lol, I am real. Tom Andrews is real. Hello from another Bulgarian. Oh, we got some Bulgarians in the chat. It's, what is it, like 8 p.m. over there? I haven't touched the lever on my original extruder in months. I guess it would have to get a clog. Adding and removing filament with it locked works fine, so I'm not worried about wear and tear. All right, good enough. Centrifugal casting, I don't think so. It's such a flat part. Like when you start doing heat treating on small flat parts like that, they might warp and do weird stuff. You asked me to weigh them. No, I can't, but if you take the density of aluminum and compare it to the density of steel, that'll get you in the ballpark of the difference. I think aluminum's like 2.7 grams per cubic centimeter, and steel is like 7.1 or 7.3 or something, maybe 7.8. Anyways, it's about 3 times heavier and 3 times stiffer than aluminum, so yeah. Knob of the lever has a slight chamfer that would support injection. Yeah, I looked at it. It looks like it was machined, probably at great expense, but, you know, that's the cost of having a functioning product and having to adapt a design that was designed for another manufacturing process into a different manufacturing process. So now it's not optimized for that process and it ends up costing even more. I mean, these are the nightmares that you get into when you use substandard engineering practices. But they did the right thing by fixing it. You know, you can judge a person by how they behave, or you can judge a person by how they behave once they've messed up and try and make things right. Okay, 1/4 of something that seems to be a 3D printer. I see 1/4. Yep, that's right. Fan noise is reduced, better top at least. My S1, yeah, so what Herzelnerk says, standby fan noise is reduced. This is a quieter machine at standby compared to my K1. The K1 has a fan that just kicks on and is making not a ton of noise, but a little bit of noise when you turn the machine on. This one is pretty much silent when it's at idle. So I really like that in a printer, and I think that alone is worth the extra $300. I'm a little bit crazy about the noise levels of my machines. My S1 has caused me nothing but headaches. I was planning to boycott Creality as they have been unbelievably difficult to work with. Would you recommend buying a K1 Max? Based on what I'm seeing here, I would recommend buying a K1 Max. I'm really enjoying the print quality that I'm getting out of this. Now keep in mind, Creality sent me this machine for free, so, you know. But I do like using it more than my P1, and it's bigger, has a full enclosure, slightly faster, doesn't have a really crappy user interface. Like that P1P 70-cent interface on a $700 printer is like, I don't know why they're doing that. I think they're just trying to bully people into getting the full X1C just because they feel like they had the market to themselves and they could be like that, you know, kind of like how Apple can charge a lot for certain upgrades that don't actually cost them that much to make. So, I mean, if they put an extra $20 on the price of the P1P and put a proper touchscreen on it, like what Creality is doing with all of their printers right now, like this. This touchscreen is great. Like, just take that and put it on the P1P. It can't cost that much. Yeah, I mean, the thing about, you know, Futfell is saying that my S1 Pro has worked reliably since day one. That's what you get when, you know, you have any manufactured good that doesn't have good, excellent quality control. Basically, you'll have some that work great and some that don't work great, and then you'll have people being like, hey, mine worked fine, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're doing. But really, it's just sample-to-sample variance in most cases. So, you know, sometimes you get a lemon, and you either have to fix it yourself or something else. So Sprecher means speaker or spokesperson in German. Good to know. All right, UK and Romania, welcome everyone. So 7.83, not sure what that means. Oh, no, I was thinking that was the time. Oh, 7.83 grams per cubic centimeter. That's why it's always important to put your units on there, Ricardo. I hope the K1 shipping now has the issues corrected. Yeah, I believe someone said that the K1 has the issues corrected, the new ones. I just got, I went to OpenSauce, and Creality sent a K1 for me to show off there. And it was a new one from the US distribution warehouse. And it had the extruder. I didn't look that closely. It might have had a new extruder on there. I'll have to look through my footage. But it appeared to have the same slight under extrusion that I was experiencing on my K1 that had the bad extruder. So I think they're in the process of switching it out. Some machines might have the new extruder, some might have the old one. What Creality is doing is they're just sending out new extruders to anyone who asks for them because they know that it's an issue. Like, they wouldn't be sending out spare extruders to people just for fun. That costs them money. They're sending them out because they know that it was an issue and they need to fix it. So if you do get one that has an older or bad extruder, send them an email and ask, like, hey, can I get the free extruder upgrade or something? And hopefully that'll fix your issues. Okay, maybe I've gotten lucky. I've had an Ender 3, Ender 2 Pro, Ender 3 S1, K1, and Halo 1. Not an issue with any of these. All right, Futfell, we got, we're gonna king you as the Creality fanboy of the night. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Creality actually has many more issues than other 3D printer companies. I think, you know, any of these budget 3D printer company brands are going to have issues with, let's say, 10 out of 100 units. It's just that Creality has sold so many printers that, you know, if you sell 1 million printers and 10% of them are bad, that's a heck of a lot of bad printers that you've sent out. No, a lot of people that are going to have a not so great opinion of the company. So they need to work on their quality control and get that up to par. I think, well, it needs to be better than average, because right now the average in terms of quality control is not great. I think Bambu Lab is doing an above average job with their QC. They're selling a lot of machines and I haven't heard a whole lot of issues. I do hear the occasional, I mean, if you go online and search, you'll find tons of people with issues, but for how many they're selling, I think they're doing a pretty good job. Creality is also trying to step up their quality control, and I wonder why they're doing it. You know, it's probably because of the competition from Bambu Lab. So when I say, you know, it doesn't matter whether you like Bambu Lab or Creality, that this K1 Max coming out and the K1 is a good thing for everybody, because it means more competition and more options and better quality and lower prices. So you've got to be crazy to not appreciate the nice new printers that are coming out now. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got here. So it looks like we've got a bunch of extra leads going to this this thing here. It says, caution, high voltage, do not touch. Or it says, no touching. No touching! So we're not going to touch that. Well, I think it'd be fine because it's unplugged right now, but yeah, just don't touch high voltage stuff if you don't need to. Yum, Spreechers. Hashtag not a sponsor. Okay, so here's our K1 board. I guess I should get some shots of this for my full YouTube video that I'll be posting. So let me, bear with me while I record that. Let's give you guys a little bit of a closer look. What do you want me to zoom in on? All right. Here's the high voltage circuit there. I'm going to be doing all this for YouTube too right now. So, all right, so we've just taken the bottom off of this K1 Max, and let's see what we've got in here. So basically we've got a power supply. Now, notably missing from this power supply is a fan. So there's no fan on this power supply, and they've got an AC relay, it looks like here. So I think we've got an AC heated bed on this machine. And that would kind of make sense because when I was looking at the heated bed, it had a red silicone bed heater on there, and that might be designed for your 220/115 volt mains circuit to power that bed. And that helps this, and that means they can spec a much lower voltage, and that means they can spec a much lower wattage power supply on this machine, and that's why when you turn it on, it doesn't make any noise, because there's no power supply fan to make noise. Also, you know, really cool that they're using this AC heated bed that helps keep everything quiet and a little bit more efficient and lets them get away with using a smaller power supply. I think this is the first Creality printer to use an AC heated bed that I'm aware of. All right, now let's look at the rest of this here. We've got our belt pathing. that is the same as the K1. I think it might be similar to a Voron design as well, maybe the Trident. I haven't taken one of those. I haven't taken one of those apart or built one, so I can't really speak with authority on that. And then over here, it looks like we've got the same control board. Oh, let's turn the camera. And then over here, it looks like we've got the same control board that was on the Creality K1. And that really makes sense to reuse those components, because if you're using the same control board and the same screen, you're basically recycling a lot of the electronics development cost on this machine. So that'll help save some serious money. This is a plastic injection molded base that separates the electronics compartment from the print area. And let's see if we've got any fans on here. I guess we've got this one fan that helps cool off the main board, and that will also kind of just circulate some air around here and cool everything else off as well. Now, a big... I think this power supply is also an automatic switching power supply, so it'll basically recognize whether it's plugged into 120 volts or 220 volts or whatever, and just automatically account for that, instead of having the switch on the side, which you have on the Creality K1, the standard K1. This K1 Max has what appears to be an automatic switching power supply, where you just plug it in and it just knows the voltage automatically and compensates for that. I don't know that for certain, but that is definitely what appears to be going on here. And then everything else on this board looks pretty cool. I mean, this is the same board that was on the K1, so if you want a close-up of that, here goes, I'll give you a close-up. It looks like there's a lot of extra ports and pins on this board. So if Creality sold this as a standalone product or used this on more products, such as their Ender 3 lineup, that would be really cool to have a unified, high-quality board and display module that they use on all of their machines. I think everyone would appreciate a change like that. So let's see what we've got here. There's some empty ports. It looks like we've got 3 extra sensor ports, 1 extra stepper port, and I guess 4 extra sensor ports actually. And there's an empty fan plug. So there's a lot of upgrade options here. Oh, also there's the heated bed plug here that is empty. And there's another heating element that can be plugged in. So that actually gives you some really interesting upgrade paths for this board. Let me just zoom you in on that a little bit, all you live stream people. So if you look right here, we've got our 24 volts in, which is powering this whole board and everything on it. And then you've got your heated bed plug. It's actually missing the it's actually missing the MOSFET that's used to drive the bed. So you could actually put one of these back on here and install something like a chamber fan or a chamber heater. Then over here we've got a just a regular heating element. I'm not sure why they have this, because as far as I know, the tool head board, there's a little breakout board on there that communicates with CAN or serial with this machine, so it doesn't really need these provisions. So this might indicate to us that they're planning on using this board on a lower end machine that's using like a traditional umbilical cord, that's not using a CAN bus. So you might see this board on a Ender 3 or a Ender 3S2 in the future. That could be pretty interesting. Yeah, and then we've got our stepper drivers here. There's 3 of them. You just need 3 stepper drivers on this board because the tool head breakout board has a stepper driver of its own. And then right here, you've got a empty stepper port. So they didn't solder a stepper driver in there, but there's an extra plug in case you wanted to drive an extra stepper. And then I'm not sure what any of these chips are. There's like electrical engineers that like to look at this stuff, so we'll just give them a little close up. Oh jeez. Oh no. And there's a couple of little buttons over here and like a couple pins. And there's like maybe a CAN bus driver or something here. Here's a USB, here's another USB, and there's yet another USB. So I'm guessing these are all stuff that goes to the tool head. I'm not gonna do a huge deep dive into this right now, but just to suffice to say that there's a lot of cool stuff on this board and room for expandability. And I hope this goes for sale and they open source this, and you know, that'll lead to another generation of really cool machines coming out. Here's your little Wi-Fi antenna cord and a USB. I don't know if that's a USB-C or a USB micro. Let me get around to the other side and check it. Testing, testing, okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, so that is a micro USB. It would be nice to see a USB-C port there, but I mean, you're not using it. It's just there for debugging purposes, as far as I can tell. So that doesn't really matter. All right, so that's cool. If anyone's got any questions about this board, let me know in the chat or in the comments below, and I'll see if I can answer them for you. Now on this, I'm pretty sure this is the bed heater. It says bed-heat-AC-V2.2. So this has got to be some kind of bed heating element, and that's plugged in right here that goes to the bed heater. So overall, really impressive stuff down here. I like what I see. So, yep, that's that. Okay, let's go back to the live chat audience. What's going on? What did I drop? Oh, I dropped the bottom panel. I'm ready to put this back together and maybe start up a test print if you guys want to see that. Is there anything on here that you want to take a closer look at, or you have any questions? You want me to read out some of the chips or something? We can only see the black heat dissipators. Yeah. Well, there's stepper drivers underneath those, so you're gonna have to take my word on that one. Here's the there's a little buzzer there, so I guess it can go beep. There's a 7.5 amp circuit breaker here, or a little fuse. I'll just read these here. So this is Ingenic X2000E. This one's a SanDisk 8G, so I'm guessing that's a 8 gigabytes of solid state memory. This is a GigaDevice ARM processor. It says GD32F303 RET6. And there's a couple more letters there. I'll just read them off. I figure if someone actually cares, they'll really appreciate that. So, AUJ8999, AJ2221. All right, and then there's like a little crab-looking thing on this board. I have no idea what that is. It says RTL8201F M917. No, sorry, M91T721 GN14B. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's like some kind of cereal chip or something. I don't know. There's all sorts of cool stuff on here. I'll take a nice picture with my DSLR and upload it to the Discord later. For anyone that wants a a 30 megapixel image. Anyone that wants a 34 megapixel image of this PCB, just join the Discord. Yeah, that's a good enough picture to reverse engineer the whole board with. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, all right, and then there's this whole bed heater thing that I'm not going to take apart. Just because it's not interesting, and I don't know, I'm not planning on modding that. All right, time for some viewer questions. Zoom out, okay. X motor cable. So the other camera we are seeing later on when the video is edited and uploaded. Yes, that's right. That'll be my like full video. Yes, closer, impossible. Okay, I'll get you closer. Now the quality here is really bad, but if you join the Discord, I'll post the pictures right after the stream ends. That should give you a pretty good idea of what's going on with this. It's a pretty nice board though, wouldn't you say? I'd like to see a tolerance test. What do you mean? Torture toaster? Well, it's taken apart right now. So the crab is the Realtek logo, all right? Okay, so that's about it. You know, pretty neat wire management down here. It's basically the same as the K1. So I'm not sure what you were expecting, but what you see here is what we've got. It's pretty nice. I think I heard some complaints about how the belt was kind of cutting, could potentially rub against the high voltage lines on the K1. It looks like they've fixed that here. So you can see there's no belts that are running over high voltage lines that I can see. And there's adequate clearance between these belts and anything that might be damaged by them. Really nice cable management. There's like little places to tie off the cables all over the place here. So yeah, then over here, that's the USB plug that you use to plug in a, you can plug in a flash drive, like a USB flash drive, or you can plug in a or you can plug in an SD card reader there. So like if you want to use old school methods of data transfer, you can. I'm not sure if it supports zip drives, CDs, or floppy disks, but at least the relatively modern flash storage you're good to go with. And then of course there's this ribbon cable that goes out to the display, which you actually plug the other end of this cable into the display when you put this printer together out of the box. Looks like you could play a tune on that belt. I guess so. Put this motherboard in the Ender 5 S1. That would be sick. I would love that. Maybe the Ender 5 K1? I don't know what they would call that. Ender 5 Pro? Ender 5 S1 Pro? Maybe there's gonna be, I don't know, what would you call it? What would you, here's an idea. What would you guys name the Ender 3 or Ender 5 that has a board and display screen like what you have on the K1? That'd be pretty crazy if they put the tool head from the K1 on an Ender 3 and Ender 5 as well. Like there's a lot of possibilities with the part spins. Part spin engineering. Ender K3, Ender K5, Ender 3K1. Ender 5 Neo Pro Plus. All right, I don't know if that's a serious suggestion, but we'll put it in the hat. All right, let me get this put back together. Oh, I gotta make sure I plug that fan in correctly. And let's see. I don't remember where this plugged in. This could be a problem for me. I think it was plugged into that one, so that's what we're going with. So what did you think about the inside look of the K1 Max and the Extruder teardown? Was that good content? I think it was something I needed to do just because, you know, they're open questions like, did they fix the shit that's wrong with the K1? Or are they just continuing to sell a bigger version of a printer that's not fully polished? Well, as far as I can tell, it looks like they fixed everything. So make sure to click those affiliate links in the video description. Check out the pricing. Right now, this thing's on pre-sale for, I think it's $8.99, and then there's a $50 off coupon that you can find in the description as well. So that brings the price down to $8.49, and it comes with a spool of filament, at least one spool of filament, because it's like inside of the machine. Might come with more bonuses, I don't know. To me, I think that's a really good deal. Because you're getting this massive print volume, you're getting high print speeds that's on par or faster than the Bambu Lab printers, and it's got a better user interface than everything except for the X1C. I think the X1C has about the same user interface as this machine. I haven't used one, but people in my comments section were telling me that the UI on this is basically the same as the X1C. And you've got that delicious local storage inside of the machine, and you can plug in USB storage to get your models over to it. You don't need to use any LAN or cloud functionality. It's just nice and easy. So I'm going to get this put back together and we'll fire up a test print. I want to put together a profile for this machine in Prusa Slicer. I was having a little bit of issues running this thing off of Orca Slicer, or at least the K1. I haven't tested the K1 Max yet. But yeah, I just need to go through and make sure that it runs, and then I can publish those profiles onto my Patreon. So if you're not already on my Patreon, you should totally join. Addict, you can try tier 50. Yeah, it's $50 off the K1 Max. And then there's tier 30, which is $30 off the K1, if you don't want to get the big K1, just the regular one. I'm going to read some more of your naming suggestions. Ender 3 Hybrid, Ender K1 Neo Pro, Ender 3 Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. That's a good one. I don't know if that's, that might be copyrighted, but it's nice. It's a nice meme. Was great content, but as a final touch, can you weigh the two extrusors? All right, I'll weigh it. Man, you guys. I got my drug scale here. I've never weighed drugs on this scale, just for the record. That's just, I don't know. So, let me read some more. Ender NBR-X. I like that one. I'm going to actually put a word in with them and say they need to name it that. It'll double their sales. Is there a UK discount code? I'm not sure. I suggest you see this direct you've made and see the camera angle is right to you. because it was not good to us. Sorry. Yeah, I'm kind of half-assing the live stream here. I'm hoping that my my engaging banter is enough to keep you all entertained, though. Okay. I mean, if I had a 3D printer running, I could have just had this running and just like panned to it whenever I'm doing something boring. Ender NBR-X. The problem is that this machine is so loud that I wouldn't want to do that. But yeah, I could work on a silent profile on the Prusa slicer and get all that worked up for people. So that coupon doesn't convert to Canadian. It's also $50 Canadian. Well, that sucks. Print a 30 by 30 millimeter cube tube, 30 by 30 in vase mode, and 600 millimeters a second. Is the insulation ring you can change to see the only change you can see to the extruder? No, the extruder has a lot of changes to the materials. They changed from an aluminum material to a steel, and I can tell because it's magnetic, and the old one wasn't magnetic. It was also lighter. So I'll weigh them in a minute here. I'm just going to flip this right side up first. All right, yeah, you are coming in late, Big D Stratton. I'm going to have to mark you as tardy today. There's no excuses for showing up this late. It's endist, not ender. The end. Yes, Nathan. Thank you, 3D Printing Addict. Ender ring. Ender ring. Not sure I get the reference. Okay, so let's flip this back right side up. We'll get it put back together, and we'll weigh some things. Ta-da! All right, let's weigh it. So you wanted to see the weight of the extruder. Let's do it. Here's the Lidar camera as well. I might as well weigh this just to see how much additional weight you have on the tool head. In case you were wondering, there's like a nice foam liner on the inside here. So when you put the glass panel down, it makes a nice seal. And it helps keep the noise in. Quiets things down quite a bit. All right, so when we're looking at additional weight here, let me get my extruder parts and we'll take a look. Dude, that's cold. I'm sorry. Do you think it's cool to show up to school late? This is a very important class. This will be on the exam. Okay, so here's the new extruder. This is a metallic steel gear, lever arm. And because you showed up late, I'm gonna have to show everyone again, and anyone else who doesn't know. So this is magnetic. You can see I can pick it up with the magnetic screwdriver. That's the new extruder. It's made out of steel. Here's the old one. It's made out of some kind of zinc aluminum alloy. I think it's the same stuff they make Hot Wheels out of. So, do you want an extruder that's made out of Hot Wheels material? Or do you want one that's made out of steel? I'm hoping that's a rhetorical question. You should know the answer. All right, so can you read the display? Tell me yes or no, and I will actually read out what is on the display anyways, just because some of you may not be listening or whatever. So here's the old extruder arm mechanism. It's 17 grams. Anyone want to guess what the steel extruder weighs? Maybe we should have a prize for the whoever gets the weight correct. 17 grams. Do you think it's 22, 23? All right, 23. Okay, before anyone guesses something remotely close, I'm gonna just weigh it. Oh yeah, I bet George is gonna be the closest. It's gonna be significantly heavier because it's steel. Oh no, whoa. Holy cow, I was wrong. So it's 20.8. So 3D printing addict probably, yeah, you sure did. Now, that's really confusing to me. My brain's about to shut off with these developments. Now, why do you think there's so little of a strength difference? Do you think this is made out of steels? Well, that's definitely made out of steel. This one's made out of something crappy. Maybe it's copper? We're gonna have to cut this thing in half. Who's ready to cut it in half? All right, let's see what's on the inside. I was certain that this was some kind of aluminum, but now I'm not so sure. I mean, it looks like some kind of aluminum or magnesium. I'm sorry, Lost in Tech is here, and he's British, so we have to call it aluminium and magnesium. If you haven't subscribed to Lost in Tech, he's got a pretty good channel. Just make sure you click on my affiliate links and not his. I mean, this is really brittle material. I'm not going to bother to break this one apart because that's the only working extruder I have right now. But I can assure you it's going to be weaker than, or it's going to be stronger than this. Like, I can tear this apart. A child can tear this apart. Alright, so now I have to do this for the camera. Crap, I forgot to record it. Well, basically, I'm live streaming right now, and I forgot to record this, but this new extruder piece weighs 20.8 grams. I thought it would be much heavier because this is steel, but the old extruder piece weighed in at about 17.0 grams. So it's only about a 3 to 4 gram difference between these two pieces. It's calling my expertise into question here. I thought for sure this one would be significantly heavier. So I'm not sure what alloy they're using here or why the weight difference isn't greater, but that's what we're working with right now. I mean, maybe this is a type of steel. It's probably Chinesium, if I had to guess. Okay, so that's that. Let's get it put back together. We'll start up a print and have some fun with this machine, shall we? Has to be cast aluminum, I agree. It definitely seems that way. But why is this one so much stronger and not that much heavier? Click on both affiliate links at the same time. All right. I shouldn't have said anything. I'm gonna lose millions on this deal. This is, yeah, I'm not sure what this is now. I can see a little bit of copper there, but that's often used in plating reactions to get a really conductive layer, or to like make metals more compatible as kind of like a primer. But yeah. All right, fascinating stuff, but It's time to reassemble the amazing, wonderful K1 Max extruder. Let me catch up on the comments first, though. So mine is magnetic, just checked. Wow. All right, Lost in Tech has got one of the new extruders on his K1. Are all the pieces of the new extruder magnetic? Yes, all of these pieces are magnetic. At least these pieces that I'm holding in my hand. The rest of the pieces, like these gears, are also magnetic. I think it's pretty much all made out of steel now. See, Lost in Tech is adding value to this live stream, so thank you for that. Maybe it's 3D printed with less density. I find that extremely unlikely just because of the cost involved. I mean, it's that would be insane to 3D print that. Interesting. So Lost, is yours like a matte finish instead of the shiny finish? Because this looks like a bead blasted finish on mine, on the one that works well. The older ones that don't work were shiny. I'm gonna open the door so you can't see my feet in the reflection. I am wearing my Birkenstocks, so. You know, I think there's a good argument to be had for the British pronunciation being the correct one. Because we don't say titanium, we say titanium. We don't say magnesium, we say magnesium. So, oh, you got a shiny one that's metallic. Interesting. Well, let me just check this one while we're at it. I have another extruder here. We'll see if this one's... Yeah, they sent me 2 non-magnetic ones. It must be the magnets inside of here that make it stronger. So, I mean, that's just how technology works sometimes. All right, let's get this put back together. We can put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Now, I took this apart against my better judgment, just for you, the audience. And if you don't like and subscribe after that, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. After I worked on this printer with my sandals on, at the risk of you seeing my Birkin tan, I've been wearing Birkenstocks too much, and now I have a tan line on my feet. All right, I'm going to raise this table up a little bit. Brought to you by FlexiSpot. They're not paying me to say that, but they paid me to say it on one of my videos. And I feel like I just need to keep saying it now. And this rougher surface finish doesn't seem to negatively affect the functioning of this part. It slides just fine. There's no grease in here. It just works. All right, so let's put these together. Uh-oh, I got these mixed up now. See what you did? Look what you've done. All right, I hope this is the right one. I'm gonna be pissed if I took this apart for you guys and I put it back together and it doesn't work. For those of you who haven't seen this taken apart before, the clicking action that they have here, do you see how it clicks back and forth? That's achieved by this little ball. Hold on. That's achieved with this little ball detent that's popping into these little holes. So, you know, clicky, clicky. And that was the other concern that I had. If they're using a soft alloy for this extruder tensioning mechanism, then that could wear into the arm over time and affect its function. So overall, I'm really happy that they switched over to a tougher material for this application. Let's get this put together. Oops. And as I went through great lengths to explain this earlier in the live stream, but I'll explain it again for those of you who are just showing up. Their choice to use aluminum for this extruder tensioning arm is a really bad choice, because basically the threads, when you screw this bolt in that holds these, when you screw these bolts in that hold these drive gear wheels in place, that's going to be the amount of torque you can apply to those bolts, and therefore the amount of clamping force those bolts are providing is going to be less because you're using a weaker alloy. So I was doing a test with my handy torque wrench here, and I was showing that above 3 Newton meters, it completely stripped the whole thing apart. Oh, and I'm also going to use some Loctite here. But anyways, if you rewind in the stream, I was... Hold on, I dropped something. Okay, there it is. If you rewind in the stream, I was using the torque wrench on the old extruder and the new extruder. And basically, the new extruder can handle much higher torques and is therefore better. Okay, if you don't unsubscribe and like it, he will zoom in even more. If you don't subscribe and like it, yep. Duralumin is a aircraft grade aluminum alloy. Of course, aluminum is the correct version. Savages. Okay. Drop counters ticking up by the minute. All right, let me see how we're doing on time. Okay, it's almost 2. I need to check an email. What size is that hardware? Pretty much all of it's M3. So let me know if the stream drops out. Okay, what size is the hardware? Yes, M3. It's all M3. I mean, that's just like the universal size for everything on a 3D printer is M3. So let's get this all put together now. I'm gonna get some Loctite, just because I feel like that'd be a good idea. Loctite's in my chemical room, so I'll be right back. All right, and I got my little red Loctite. This is from 2015. You think it's still good? I bet it's fine. And this comes in a handy little travel size that you can take on the airplane for when you need to secure some fasteners on vacation. All right. Now this came with some gray Loctite, which I haven't seen before, but red Loctite's gonna have to do here. Now I'm always careful when I'm putting Loctite in, because you don't want it to get like on your bearings and stuff, which I might have just done. Whoops. Okay, hold on, I gotta clean that off of my bearings. Ugh. That was perfect timing. All right, so I'll get that pre-tightened. I'll do the same thing here. Ah, shit. You know what? It's gonna be fine. Maybe it's not gonna be fine. See, this is why I didn't want to take this apart, but I had to do it. Someone had to do it. It's one of those dirty jobs that someone's got to do. Time to torque this down. Technically it's a bit overstated, but there are really bad aluminum alloys I wouldn't trust for 5 seconds. Yeah, there's some really weak aluminum alloys out there. Like, there's aluminum alloys you can basically carve with a knife. They're that weak. Okay, we're set to 3 Newton meters. We'll give it a good 3 Newton meters here. Oh, whoopsie. Wow, I'm dumb. I need to make sure that this is seated all the way before I apply the torque. There we go. There's our 3 Newton meters. I wonder if I can turn it up to 3.5. What am I supposed to set M3 hardware to? Oof, 3.5 seems a bit much. I'm gonna step it back to, yeah, 3 is probably enough. Yep, it's a decent workbench. See, I mean, I'm not a trained mechanic, so, you know, I mess things up like this. I understand what I mess up, at least. That's the perks of being an engineer. You know how bad you're messing things up. I'm going to see if I can do 3.5 on this one. That's a bit iffy. Probably stopped at like 3.3 Newton meters on that one. Small fasteners Loctite is purple. Where we're going, we don't need Loctite. Okay, so I mean, you know, if I had a whole library of Loctite, I would pick the right stuff. The stuff that came on here was a gray Loctite. I wonder if it was like what do you call the metal stuff? Maybe it was some kind of epoxy. It was extremely hard to remove. But we've got it all put back together again. Let's go ahead and do some prints, shall we? does get a little tight here. I don't know. Maybe I've damaged some things. Let's just run it and see what happens. It'll probably be fine. But yeah, it was working fine before I took it apart, so if it's not working fine anymore, it's probably my fault. And by extension, it's your fault in the audience for not stopping me. Anyone heard or see when they let us purchase the K1 Enhancing Kit for $2? I think that K1 Enhancing Kit is like K1 necessary upgrades to get the extruder that it should have shipped with kit. So I would definitely not skip out on that. Like, just make sure you get that because they're probably going to send you out a better extruder like what I have on this K1 Max. All right, and there's our new extruder, nice and clicky. Let's get this put together. Lost feed here. Oh, okay, wow. M4, these were M3s. Wow, I probably put too much torque on them, but you know what? It's fine, it'll be fine. We're never taking this apart again, so don't worry about it. So what did you think of the revelations we've made today? Is this good stuff to know? Do you like the live streams, or would you rather just wait a couple days to hear about it in the video? Purple is 222 MS. All right, love the live streams. Thank you, 3D Print Addict. Love it. All right. I love the fact that yeah, K1 is a workbench. I like this because I get to ask questions and provide my own thoughts. That's good. M3, ooh, 2.2 Newton meters. Okay, so I over tightened it. Okay, well, VM Junior, you can't make everyone happy. All right, so let's get this put together again. Let's put our Humpty Dumpty back together here. Oh yeah, and if you weren't here prior when I took this apart, it's got this little PCB material shim. Looks like it's about 1 millimeter thick. I have calipers, so I might as well measure it while we're doing all this. It's 0.5 millimeters thick, and it appears to be just an insulation layer between the extruder and the stepper motor to prevent the heat from creeping into that extruder assembly and weakening the filament. Because if the filament gets heated up, then it's going to be weaker, and you're not going to be able to extrude it as easily. So that's your daily dose of science. The funny thing is, those rated torque values, if you tried to apply those when screwing things into a 3D printed part, you'd destroy all your 3D printed parts. You'd strip all the things. So we've had some interesting discoveries today, and I'd like to make some speculations, some discoveries and speculations. So I think Creality is going to be releasing a double extruder variant of this machine. And the reason I think that is if you look on the main board, it has the provisions to do it, because all you have to do is change the breakout board up here, and it's running off of CAN. So as long as you can deliver enough power to power 2 tool heads, you'll be fine. Loctite needs iron ions to harden. It won't cure on glass. That's interesting. That sounds like magic. I hope Nathan's K1 Max still prints after this science experiment. Red Loctite means the extruder isn't being disassembled again. Lol. Hate to see red Loctite being dribbled onto the glass top. Yeah, well, hopefully it doesn't come apart again. I'll just buy a new one. I mean, if worst comes to worst. Sometimes you don't have the right tools for the job, and in those cases, it's always better to hurry it up and get the job done at any cost, including when there's an impact to quality. Oh wait, that's not the right answer. You're supposed to get the job done right the first time. Okay, so that's all put together. I think we're all good to turn this thing back on. Oh wait. I forgot about this. The Lidar module, which I'm not using right now, so I guess that's kind of interesting. That might be a option some people might choose, is if you take the Lidar module off, it's probably going to perform ever so slightly better in ringing performance, because that's less weight on the tool head. Let's go ahead and weigh the thing. But I think the advantages of using this Lidar module might outweigh its weight. Ooh, it is pretty heavy though. 19.23 grams. And there's also a little bracket here. See this bracket? The bracket right there. Let's see if that's steel. With our little screwdriver of truth. Yep, that's a steel bracket. So that's adding some weight to the tool head as well. Between the 19 grams there and that steel bracket, you're probably looking at 23 to 25 grams of added weight to have that Lidar module. So whether or not that's worth it to you is going to depend on a case by case. Depending on how useful it is. I mean, if it's really handy, then I don't see a problem with keeping it on there. But if you want to get the maximum performance and you're not using its features, then you might as well just take it off. Okay, so here goes. So we'll fire this thing up and I'll load up some filament and see if it still prints. I'll just load up the 16-minute speed benchy, and while that's printing, I'm gonna hop on Prusa Slicer and see if I can get a slicer set up for both of these machines, because being able to not use Creality Print will be pretty nice. I mean, Creality Print works fine. I don't really have that much issues with it, but I always prefer an open source, like one that a lot of people are using and understand, and I understand the risks of using it and all that. And I just like the interface and the speed of Prusa Slicer, so I think it's always good to have options like that. So I'll be working on the profile there. Let's plug this thing in and get it fired up. Oh, I've got a couple things to refasten here. There's just 3 screws that I need to put in here to... Oop. Crap. I wish Creality would just use socket head cap screws for everything. And that goes for all 3D printer manufacturers. Socket head cap screws are the superior choice. As long as you're not in a space-constricted application. I mean, sure, it saves a tiny bit of weight, but the inconvenience of using those flathead screws and all that crap, I'm not about that. Alright. Also on this machine, serviceability is still a bit of a concern for me, just because it's using these pressed in, possibly epoxied in pillow block bearings. I'm not sure how you take it apart, and I'm not going to take it apart on stream right now because I've already done enough of that. There might be a way to replace all this stuff and, you know, just slide it off the end or something, but I haven't looked into it yet, so we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. It might be a similar deal to Bambu Lab where you have to replace the whole X gantry all at once when anything on there goes bad, which would be a real bummer. I hate to see 3D printers go the way of requiring large, expensive modules to be replaced whenever it needs servicing for certain items. All right, and why not? You know what, before we put this all the way back together, let's take the front cover of this tool head off and see what's in there. I've already undone the screws, so it shouldn't be too hard. But you can imagine if Creality just designed a new breakout board here, since it's just communicating over COM, they could put another stepper driver on there, they could put another fan and thermistor and heater element, and then you could run 2 extruders on this hot end. That would be pretty sweet. That'd be very, very cool. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. I like my anchor make. They're releasing something new in a few weeks. I literally know nothing about that. Wish I did. Lol. Any info on it? Well, there's some, they have a tweet. They have some publicly available information. And I might be posting a video about it. So, you know, just speculating on what it might have. They do have an AMS. It's the V6. It can carry 6 spools of filament. Okay, so what do you think of all this nonsense in here? Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing that's on the K1. Uh, 300 milliamp fan, 24 volts. That's a very powerful fan. As far as I can tell, this is exactly the same as what was on my K1 that I took apart, so we don't need to spend too much time looking at this. The print head, though, it's a little different. I have a spare one that I can show you instead of pulling the one off of the printer. So it looks like they changed the color of the print head in terms, they changed the color of the sock. And this looks like a bimetallic. And this has a copper, wow, that's a copper bimetallic copper bimetallic nozzle there. That's cool. Do you see that? It's a copper with a what looks like a steel insert. We'll get our magnet on there. It might be a tungsten carbide. Creality doesn't send me much information about these machines. They just send me the stuff and they're like, hey, take a look. Yeah, this is attracted to the magnet. So this is a hardened steel nozzle pressed into a copper outer piece. So pretty cool stuff. I'm guessing the red nozzle means it's for like high temperatures. So you get that on the K1 Max as well. Okay, so let's see. Oh wait, iSlice and Prusa join their Discord. Do you have a K1 Prusa slicer profile? Because I would like to use one or make one. I lost the screw. Oh, there it is. The one annoying thing about not having a bed slinger is when there's something under the bed and you have a bed slinger, you can just push the bed out of the way. Versus with this, if the bed's in the way, you have to come around and reach through the front to get under it. That's not that big of a deal, but there are some perks to having a bed slinger. Like you go through less filament. All you have to buy is PLA and PETG, which is less expensive. So, you know, it's a good choice for a lot of people. If you later want to hear some more from Nathan, oh yeah. Tell him about it, Herzelnerk. There's a profile in the latest beta. Awesome. I'll have to check that out. Is the V6 out now, not showing up on their site? Yeah, I don't think the V6 is out yet, but they did a successful Kickstarter on it, so they're working on it. Oh, geez. So the V6, the MSRP was going to be $500, but I've heard that they're going to increase it. Part of the reason is they're cramming so many features into it. So it's going to have room for 6 spools of filament, and it'll also have a heating element, so it can heat and dry your filament as well. Versus the AMS, it just has desiccant packs in there. So it should be bigger and more functional than the AMS, but really I think the sweet spot would be AMS functionality at a lower cost, which honestly sounds right up Creality's alley. So I'm hoping they're working on something like that. It'd be fun to test out. And another thing about this is the way they the position of this filament runout detector doesn't make any sense unless you have a motor on the backside to pull the filament. You know, actually, no, it doesn't make sense to have it there. Well, that'll be an issue for another day. Because to get rid of like certain amounts of filament, you might have to pull out and pull this filament. It'll be just a little bit more annoying. I think Bambu Lab has the better filament management system for sure. Okay, so that's all installed. Last thing I'm going to do is put this Lidar module back on. Now, I haven't used this Lidar module yet, but I have been told that it works. You just have to enable a setting somewhere, which I didn't do. Which, I don't know if you've watched my channel, but that's kind of on brand for me. If there's something that I don't feel like I need to use, I just won't use it. And then people will complain about how I'm not testing the full machine, and it's like, you know what, this is how I'm testing the machine. So, this is how I would use the machine, so I'm not going to make up some imaginary use case that has nothing to do with me, just so that you can be happy with my review. Like the Creality Cloud, people were telling me like, oh, you didn't try out Creality Cloud? And I'm like, yeah, because I don't like the cloud. Have you seen my videos? And from all reports I've heard that it's not the best thing to use, so why not just not use it? Alrighty, so we're all set. I'm going to heat up the filament so I can pull this little bit out the top. And I'm going to look at the nozzle that's already in there. And get my light on. Yeah, the nozzle that's on there is a hardened steel by the looks of it. Or it's a stainless steel, but that wouldn't make any sense. Some stainless steels are slightly magnetic, so that's not always a safe way to rule out stainless, but I would assume they're using hardened steel on there. It wouldn't make sense for them not to. But then again, they shipped it out. They shipped out their K1 with a not really functional extruder, so just because they should do something doesn't mean they will. Okay, I agree. I hate cloud apps. V6 looks sweet. Yes, it does. Is it just me who is getting the mic out of the way of sync right now? Uh-oh, mic's out of sync. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that. For me, it's in sync if I listen to sounds other than his voice. Clap. Okay, so let's fire this up and see if I broke anything. Also, I need to clean that bed. Because I made a mess of it. I'll just kind of wipe it up like this. I got grease on the bed, which is like the worst thing you can do. You get oil and grease on the bed. It's gonna mess with its bed adhesion. So I've been doing most of my prints without any glue stick. It says please apply glue stick, but I was running this thing like 24/7 at open sauce, and it was doing fine without the glue stick. On some prints it wasn't sticking just because it was like getting really dusty in there, because it's like kind of an outdoor-ish environment. And maybe glue stick would have helped to kind of get things to work a little bit better. But for parts that don't have challenging bed adhesion, using it without glue stick is fine. Also, this bed takes a lot of glue stick to cover, so maybe instead of covering the whole thing, you just cover the area that you need. I find the best thing to do here is to just wet a paper towel and just smear it all over everything and get all the glue reliquidated and spread around. So yeah, that's an option too. Okay, who wants to see a big print? Someone was asking for a basically a large vase mode print that covers the whole build area. Oops. Well, I will see if I can make something like that happen. Okay, so new bed. I don't know about that. I could put a I could put a PEI bed on there. I think I have one. On a PEI bed. I think the chat wants a PEI bed. I also have this polycarbonate bed. I've got all the beds. This is from the Ender 3. This is from the Ender 3 Plus, Ender 3 S1 Plus, or Ender 3 S1 Max or something. And it actually, the spacing of these two holes is different. So it won't actually fit on there. So what I'm gonna do here is figure out where I need to make those little cuts. Okay, I lined up where I need to make those cuts. There's just a couple little marks here. Is there, no, there's noticeable differences between the K1 Max and K1 extruders. The K1 Max is made with a steel alloy, and the K1, I believe, is made out of some kind of aluminum alloy. So that's a pretty big difference, and I think it'll result in it being much more reliable. Also, the newer K1s are coming out with the upgraded extruder, I think. I don't have any insider info on this, but that's what it sounds like. You know, cutting this isn't going so well. I might need to get a better tool for this. You know what? We're gonna try the PEI sheet out later. You'll just have to subscribe and watch the full video. But I'm just going to go with this because it's ready. And we'll just get something going here. He cut the wrong thing. Oh, we're back. Yeah. K1 Max is 300 by 300. Yep. All right, and as you can hear, when this machine turns on, there's no fans that spin up because we're using an AC heated bed, as we just discovered. Nice drill press. I don't have a drill press. I see it cut notches into the rear with the print bed, so we'll have to wait for companies to release K1 Max specific beds. You can cut that yourself. I have some tin shear, they're called tin snips, or they're basically like really strong scissors for sheet metal. You can cut through that stuff. It might not be perfect, and you know, if you have some metalworking experience, it'll help. Or if you have access to some really good tools or a Dremel, you can cut those notches yourself. It's not that critical. But you definitely want to put the notches in there before you start using it. All right, so let's print. I guess we'll just print the benchy, good old benchy. Have to keep refreshing to get it back. Oh, really? Huh. Well, new firmware update today. The camera action problems I was having on the K1. All right, cool. I don't upgrade. I should probably do a firmware update on my stuff. All right, there we go. I haven't tried filling the bed with parts. All right, you see how loud this printer is? It's pretty annoying. That's what the fan's for. I mean, the glass top is for. That cuts like 8 decibels off of the noise levels. It's very nice. I'm gonna sit on. Oh, I'm gonna go sit down. But we can watch this from afar. Is the K1 print bed interchangeable with Ender 5S1 bed, or is it a new size? Yeah, it's the exact same size. I've actually put beds from my Ender 5S1 onto the K1, and it worked fine. All right, 1 second delay. Saw you use a Bondtech CHT in one of your K1 shorts. Was wondering what the experience was like, plug and play or Z offset adjustment needed. So the K1, it levels the bed by touching the nozzle to the bed. So if there's a difference in the offset, it automatically compensates for that. So there's no probe offset. There's no like Z probe offset that's required to get it working. In fact, you could just screw a volcano. You could just screw a super volcano nozzle into the end of the Creality K1. I threw out my super volcano nozzle, but it would have been hilarious to do that. All right, let's see how the print's going. Hold on. There's gross Loctite stuff on this. I have to clean it. It must be cleansed. I need a microfiber towel up in here. Okay, so we're gonna have to deal with a little bit more noise here without the lid, but we'll be able to see what's going on. Exciting. Here's that AC heated bed with a full-size silicone bed heater. Pretty nice feature there. So the pressure, the bed leveling sensor is 3 load cells in the base of the machine. You can see one right over here. There's 3 load cells, one there, and one in the back of the machine. And together those will detect the nozzle touching the bed anywhere on the print area. The default print speed is like between 200 and 300 millimeters per second for most features, with travel moves and infill moves in 400 to 600 print speeds. So it slows down during like high detail moves, but this is still a 16-minute benchy. I haven't tested the Bambu Lab X1C, but I imagine it would be quieter because when I close this, it's actually not very loud. Let me just close the front and then I'll put the lid on. So yeah, I can't do a sound comparison because I don't have the X1C to compare it to, but I did some decibel tests in my first video about this printer. So you can check that with some other data other people have collected, but just keep in mind that differences in how people collect data are going to affect the results. Yeah, I guess if you don't need the larger print size, the K1 is fine. I really like what the print size, the 300 by 300 millimeter, it unlocks the ability to do some pretty interesting things that you can't do on a smaller print bed. But that said, it still can get the job done if you're doing smaller parts. I'm using Creality Hyper PLA because that's what came with the printer, and it works really good on this printer, so I like using that for now until I run out. I've also used this Sunlu Meta PLA. That's pretty decent. Most brands are pretty good. It's easy to find good filament nowadays. I used to buy a lot of matte filament and silk filament, but I find those are kind of just a waste of money, essentially, because I guess they look cool, but they don't have very good structural properties. I like just as much if you can, just get pure PLA. It hasn't tried to mine Bitcoin on my local network yet. None of my printers are connected to the internet. Also, hi Paul, good to see you. The chat just got one more troll. You're in good company. Have you tried any filled filament? I have not. Let's see, I think I got some over here. Let me take a look. I got some tricolor filament. I haven't printed with it. Ah, crap. Tricolor filament. This is from Sovol. It's like that co-extrusion, so it's 3 different colors. I haven't tried it yet. I also have this 2-color filament from Sovol. They just sent it to me. I didn't really ask for it, but I guess I'll use it. Also, I have some more like color gradient and co-extrusion, which is like that double color filament from, I have some Creality and some from Sovol. So, I mean, just whoever sends me stuff, I print with it. I agree with Tom. I like to use PETG and polycarbonate more often because just in a hot car, PLA can get soft to the point where any structural part is just going to melt. Can you print faster to speed up when you print? I don't know if I want to go faster than this. This has probably been tuned because companies tend to do that when they send out a printer with a pre-compiled hold on, I was just looking at something. Yeah, when they send out a printer with pre-compiled G-code, they usually have it turned up to the maximum speed. So generally, turning it up faster than that is just going to cause a failed print. But it's doing the fast printing thing pretty well. have you ever tried any other filament not meant for high speeds? I have. I think, I'm not sure what difference the high-speed filament makes, honestly. Like, I've been able to print 75 cubic millimeters per second on standard PLA. So, I mean, just get as high flow of a nozzle as you can and turn the temperature up to whatever you can get away with and go for it. If you think a specific filament is going to help you out, then get it and try it out and see if it actually helps. Yeah, so, I mean, CNC Kitchen made a video about how if you print fast, you end up with weak parts, which isn't entirely true. Excessive part cooling will make weak parts. So if you turn the fans up all the way and you're really cranking stuff out, then you could end up with weaker interlayer bonding. But really what it comes down to is the temperature of the layer before what you're putting down, and also the temperature of the plastic that you're extruding. Like, those are process parameters that you're going to need to tune. And for any real engineering application, they're going to want to know exactly how strong the material is within a certain degree of statistical certainty. Have you ever tried fill? Would you recommend Formutura Easy Fill PLA? I have no idea. I just prefer, like, my favorite filament is pure PETG, just clear, pure PETG. The only thing that's going to happen when you add filament dyes is you're going to add more complications into the process. Just, if I could get pure PLA without all the frickin' crap added to it, I would get it. I've heard good things about atomic filaments PLA. They're made in America. Everyone that I've talked to that uses it swears by it, so that's something I might try out soon. But in terms of, like, materials, I just go for as pure a material as possible and as consistent a material as possible. If they're adding all these additives and you don't know exactly what's going in there, how are you gonna, like, figure out from one batch to the next whether it's going to be the same? The most consistent material is going to be just pure material. Yeah, why do ceramic filaments, why are they soft and needed to be print cooler? Like, shouldn't all those materials be the same? So they're adding additives. You don't know what they're putting in there. They might be putting some ABS that's going to be exhausting some nasty fumes while you're printing. They might be using dyes that are carcinogenic. You don't know. So what I would do is just use as pure material as possible. Capricorn PTFE tubing is good for tubing, but bad for reverse Bowden. Yeah, I agree. Pure transparent PLA. So what do you think of the speed? Is this pretty good? Polymaker PLA, yeah, I've used Polymaker PLA. I don't like their matte filament because, just generally speaking, matte filaments are weaker. But, I mean, this is a pretty quiet machine, all things considered. Like, I mean, we're right here. You're like a hand's distance away from the printer. We go a full arm's length away. Not too bad, noise-wise. You made me order a new toy. Okay. All right, Antal Janos. As long as you order all your new toys through my affiliate links, I'm okay with that. Can you improve the first layer on the K1? The first layer is not manual, that's why. I've seen many reviewers saying the first layer cal is slightly too high. Interesting. I'm not sure. I think, well, what I'm... All right, let's look at and see if there's anything here. Yeah, I don't see anything here. What I would do is over extrude the first layer, like increase the flow, first layer flow to like 110%. And that would compensate for that, and you'd probably get better bed adhesion on top of that. But I agree that you should be able to calibrate that stuff. I'm really hoping Creality open sources and lets people put Clipper on these machines, because that's going to be better for everyone. Oh, also the gap here looks tighter. If you look at the gap on this right here, it looks like it's wider on the original K1 that I have. Keep in mind this is an early production version, so they might have tightened up the tolerances on this K1. But the K1 Max looks like it's a little bit tighter. And then people complain about this so much, and it's like, guys, it's not that big of a deal. It's like a tiny little gap here. Like, what do you think is going to happen? So yeah, people make a big deal about that. If it bothers you, you could 3D print a little corner piece that just closes that up. I mean, honestly, what's going to come of that? Pure PLA is a milk color, not transparent. Interesting. Yeah, I bought some pure PLA. It's around here somewhere. But it's not super clear like PETG is. Printer will look good. Definitely be picking one up in a few weeks. All right, gamer. I'm not sure what their deal with the pricing is. Right now it's like at an early bird price, like for pre-orders. I think the MSRP is $9.99, and right now they have it $100 off plus the $50 coupon. But who knows what they're going to do with the price? I mean, it's a really hot market between Creality. I guess Anchor Make's coming out with a new printer now. I haven't heard about the price on that, but someone was saying $3.99, which is, you know, pretty cheap. And then there's the Bambu Lab printers, like mine over there. I don't think I'm going to be using the Bambu Lab printer that much anymore. This is like my go-to printer now, just because I never have to worry about the print volume being too small. Also, I want Creality to send me another one of these extruders so I can retrofit my original K1. Ordered K1 Max today. Hope it's gonna work. Yeah, I mean, everything I've heard from Creality is that they wanted to release the K1 first, work out the bugs, and then when the K1 Max comes out, they should have a smoother launch. And that definitely appears to be the case, because this K1 Max is a lot better quality-wise than my K1 was. Like, you know, you don't do this kind of thing on a perfectly working printer. Like, I put the new extruder on there for a reason. Push Plastics filament. They have done some very interesting filaments. Carbon fiber polycarbonate plus PBT. Not sure what that will do for you. But yeah, here's some more parts that I've printed out on this K1 Max. They're pretty good. Now this stream is like really low quality probably, but I'll just describe what's going on here. It's really good overhangs, bridging, pretty good extrusion. There's a little bit of stringing, but you can see it in there probably. But that cleans up really easy with a torch. Like just one pop with the torch cleans that up. Because it's really thin stringing. It's not like thick stuff that's gonna be difficult to take care of. You probably just rub it in your hands and all of it would fall off. All right, so any last questions about this? Any last questions about this bad boy? I think I'm gonna go and take care of some other business today. Get some real filming done instead of this short stuff or live stream stuff. Test a show on purpose failed print to see if the AI can actually is competent. You know, I don't really believe in any of that AI stuff, so I'm probably not gonna mess with it. Kira, you can print how precise is the machine? I'm not sure. Yeah, probably what I'm gonna do for my next review, update, is I'll print a bunch more stuff out and share the findings about that extruder being different and the internals, just show those close-ups of the insides of the machine. And just some general ideas. I'll probably try out the AI Lidar module. And, I mean, I don't really get the point of it. It sounds like a gimmick to me. Like, prints generally don't fail after the first 5 to 10 layers. So if you're past that, then like what's the point of having that LiDAR module? I just start prints up and I watch it for the first couple minutes and then I leave. Order the K1 Max today. Really hope it's gonna work. Oh yeah, I read that already. Plus minus 0.1 millimeter accuracy. Not sure. I guess I could measure the benchy, right? People say that you can measure the stuff on the benchy. Well, I have some calipers, so we can put that to the test. What are the critical dimensions of a benchy? .96, 12.0, 12.11. I mean, it really depends on how you measure this, but it's right around 12 millimeters. Let's measure that inside. My calipers are a little bit messed up, but let's see what this is. 7.7. 7.83. I don't know what else I'm supposed to measure on here. The diameter of this hole. 8.9. Am I winning yet? 8.98. 8.9. I mean, I feel like this is all not very good to measure. I think a calibration cube like this would make a little more sense. .01. 29.8. I mean, this looks like it's within 1% tolerance, which is pretty good. 29.9. 29.8. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks for everyone for tuning in. I'll see you later. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll be posting some more content about this bad boy probably this weekend. So thanks for showing up, and I'll see you in the next one.